We'll have to work with what we can build or modify quickly, Jake replied. Turned cargo hauler. The Battle of the Kepler Nebula lasted 18 hours and changed the course of galactic history forever. Admiral Elena Martinez commanded the combined human galactic fleet from the flagship Resolute, a hastily converted exploration vessel now bristling with weapons that had been impossible to imagine. Just weeks before, the Zirathi had expected another easy victory. They had swept through 17 systems without serious opposition, destroying everything in their path. Their ancient warships were massive and powerful, designed to overwhelm enemies through sheer firepower. What they found instead was something completely new in their experience. An enemy that fought smarter, not just harder. The human battle plan was unlike anything the Zirathi had encountered in their centuries of warfare. Instead of meeting the enemy fleet head-on in a traditional battle, the combined forces used the dense gas clouds of the Kepler Nebula for cover. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their galactic allies, darted through the nebula like wolves hunting in fog. They struck at the edges of the Zirathi formation, targeting supply ships and command vessels while avoiding direct confrontation with the massive battleships. Commander Sarah Walsh led a squadron of converted galactic cargo haulers that had been turned into fast attack craft. Her ships were not designed for combat, but they were fast and carried human-designed missiles that could punch through Zirathi armor. "Remember," she broadcast to her mixed crew of humans and aliens, "we're not trying to destroy their big ships. We're trying to blind them and cut their supply lines. Hit the support vessels and get out." The tactic worked better than anyone had hoped. The Zirathi fleet, used to overwhelming weaker enemies with brute force, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to stand still and be destroyed. But the real turning point came when human special forces launched their most daring operation of the war. Captain Mike Rogers led a boarding party of human marines and trained galactic volunteers onto the Zirathi flagship using small, stealthy shuttles. The concept of boarding enemy vessels was completely foreign to galactic warfare. Most species considered it barbaric and unnecessarily dangerous. But humans had been perfecting the technique for centuries. Rogers and his team fought their way through the massive ship's corridors, using tactics that the Zirathi had never encountered. They moved in small groups, used explosives to seal off sections of the ship, and captured key intelligence about the enemy fleet's structure and objectives. Most importantly, they disabled the flagship's command systems just as the main battle was reaching its climax. Without central coordination, the Zirathi fleet fell into confusion. Individual ships began making their own tactical decisions, breaking the disciplined formation that had made them so effective. Admiral Martinez seized the opportunity immediately. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessels. Take out their ability to coordinate and they'll fall apart." The battle turned into a rout. Zirathi ships, designed to fight as part of a coordinated fleet, found themselves isolated and vulnerable. One by one, they were either destroyed or forced to surrender. When the flagship finally went dark, its weapons silenced and its engines dead, the remaining Zirathi vessels stopped fighting. Without their command structure, they had no idea what to do. The aftermath of the battle shocked both sides. The Zirathi had expected to crush another defenseless target. Instead, they had been outfought by an enemy they had never imagined could exist. Warlord Gexton, the Zirathi commander, was brought aboard the Resolute under heavy guard. He was a massive being, covered in natural armor and bearing the scars of countless battles. His species had been warriors for thousands of years. He expected to be executed or tortured. That was what the Zirathi would have done to a defeated enemy. Instead, Admiral Martinez offered him something that stunned him into silence. "Warlord Gexton," she said formally, "I offer you terms of surrender. Your forces will lay down their weapons and submit to galactic authority. Your people will be allowed to return to their homeworlds under supervision. There will be no executions, no slavery, no revenge." Gexton stared at her with eyes that had seen centuries of warfare. "You would let us live? After what we have done?" "We're not conquerors," Martinez replied simply. "We're defenders. Our job is to protect the innocent, not to punish the guilty." The Zirathi warlord was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke in a voice heavy with something that might have been respect. "You fight like warriors, but you think like something else. What are you?" "Human," Martinez said. "And we're offering you a chance to learn what that means." The war was over, but the real changes were just beginning. In the months that followed, human military advisors were stationed throughout galactic space. Not as occupiers or rulers, but as teachers and protectors. The Galactic Defense Academy was established on a neutral world, with Commander Tony Parker as its first director. Officers from peaceful species came to learn the arts of strategy, tactics, and military leadership. But Parker made sure they learned something else as well. "We're not here to make you into killers," he told each new class. "We're here to make you strong enough that you never have to kill unless there's no other choice." The transformation of galactic civilization was remarkable. Species that had known only peace for millennia began to understand the principles of deterrence. They learned that strength, properly managed, was the foundation of lasting peace. The Zirathi themselves became some of the Academy's most dedicated students. Their warrior culture, channeled into defensive rather than aggressive purposes, made them excellent peacekeepers. Within a few years, former Zirathi warriors were serving alongside galactic forces as protectors of the very worlds they had once tried to destroy. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. The galaxy no longer lived in constant fear of the unknown. They had faced an existential threat and survived, guided by the species they had once feared most. A year after the Battle of Kepler Nebula, Ambassador Jake Morrison stood before the Galactic Council for the final time in his official capacity. He was returning to Earth, his mission complete. The great chamber was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. Many of the faces were familiar now, beings who had once looked at him with fear and suspicion, but who now showed respect and even friendship. "When we first met," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems, "you feared us because we were different. You saw our capacity for violence and assumed we were violent by nature." He paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. "What you've learned is that humans aren't warriors because we love war. We're warriors because we love peace enough to fight for it." High Chancellor Morthek, who had once trembled at humanity's arrival, now stood to reply. His ancient voice carried warmth that had been missing during those first difficult meetings. "Ambassador Morrison, when your species first arrived at our station, we prayed that you would remain silent, that you would leave us in our peaceful isolation. We were terrified of what you might do to our carefully ordered galaxy." The Chancellor looked around the chamber, his gaze taking in representatives from hundreds of worlds that were now safe because humans had been willing to fight for them. "Now we understand that your voice, your strength, is what allows the rest of us to sleep safely. The galaxy no longer fears Earth's silence. We have learned to find comfort in humanity's vigilant watch." As Jake's ship departed Kepler 7-4, the final time, it carried with it a new treaty that would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity would serve as the galaxy's military guardians, while the galactic community would share its peaceful wisdom and advanced technology with Earth. It was a partnership that none had expected when first contact began, but one that would endure for generations to come. Years later, children of dozens of different species would learn the story in their schools. How the galaxy's most feared species became its most trusted protectors. How sometimes the greatest gift one can give is not peace itself, but the strength to preserve it. The human motto, now inscribed in the halls of the Galactic Council, served as a reminder to all civilized beings. Si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war, but below it, in humanity's own addition to galactic wisdom, was a second inscription that captured the true lesson of first contact. The strong do what they can, and the wise do what they should. True strength lies in choosing to protect rather than conquer. Captain Elena Martinez, now Admiral of Galactic Defense, often stood before these words during her visits to the council chambers. She remembered the fear in alien eyes when humans first arrived, and the trust that had replaced it. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not their capacity for violence, but their willingness to use that capacity only in defense of others. They had discovered that the most dangerous species in known space was also the most reliable guardian of peace. In the vast silence of space. Where once there had been fear of Earth's warlike nature, there was now something far more valuable. There was security in knowing that someone was watching, someone was ready, someone would fight when fighting was the only way to protect the innocent the galaxy had prayed for Earth's. Admiral Kate Sullivan read the emergency message from Zenith Prime 3 times before she could believe it. The Galactic Council's homeworld was in panic. 12 different star systems were under attack at the same time. The Devourers had launched their biggest offensive in 3,000 years. "Ma'am, President Crawford is on the secure line," said her aide. Lieutenant Colonel Mary Johnson. Kate picked up the communication device. "Mr. President, I assume you have seen the reports." "I have," Daniel Crawford replied. His voice was calm, but Kate could hear the anger underneath. "The Council wants to evacuate 17 billion people from 4 worlds. They plan to just abandon them to the Devourers." "What are your orders, sir?" "Save them," the President said. "All of them. I am authorizing Operation Hammer Strike. Use every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have." Kate felt pride swell in her chest. This was why she served humanity. When everyone else ran away, humans stood and fought. "Understood, Mr. President. What about the Council?" "They will not like us taking independent action." "Let me worry about the politicians," Crawford said. "You worry about killing Devourers." Kate ended the call and immediately began sending orders. Within minutes, every human military base in the galaxy received the same message. All forces were to mobilize for immediate combat operations. On the research station orbiting Mars, Dr. Lisa Hampton worked with an alien scientist named Zarkith. The tall, thin creature had 6 arms and skin that changed colors when he was excited. Right now, his skin was flashing bright red. "The biological weapon could work," Zarkith said in his clicking voice. "But we need more time to test it." Lisa shook her head. "We do not have more time. The attack started 2 hours ago." She looked at the data on her screen. The weapon was designed to attack Devourer brain functions. It would disrupt their ability to communicate with each other. Without their hive-mind connection, individual Devourers became much weaker. "The key is human brain patterns," Lisa explained. "Our minds work differently than any other species. We can adapt and change in ways that confuse the Devourers." Zarkith's skin turned blue, which meant he was thinking hard. "You want to use human unpredictability as a weapon?" "Exactly," Lisa said. "Load the biological agent into every weapon we have. When it hits Devourer ships, it will spread through their air systems." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was leading his battle group toward the new Sardinia system. Intelligence reports said 6 million Taurillian refugees were trapped on the planet's surface. 3 Devourer attack fleets were moving to destroy them. "How long until we reach the system?" Jake asked his navigator. 47 minutes at maximum speed," replied Lieutenant Ben Carter. Jake studied the tactical display. His battle group had 12 ships. The Devourers had over 50. The odds were terrible, but that had never stopped humans before. "Signal all ships," Jake ordered. "We are going in fast and hard. Hit their command vessels first. If we can disrupt their coordination, we might have a chance." The UES Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Sardinia system. Immediately, alarms began sounding as sensors detected enemy ships. "Devourer fleet bearing 27 Mark IV, reported the sensor officer. 53 ships confirmed." Jake smiled. "Only 53? I was hoping for more of a challenge." His crew laughed despite their fear. Jake had a way of making impossible situations seem manageable. "All weapons, target the lead ship," Jake commanded. "Fire quantum torpedoes." The Defiance shook as her weapons fired. Bright blue energy bolts crossed space and slammed into a massive Devourer cruiser. The alien ship's shields flared and died, but the Devourers fought back hard. Energy beams and Plasma missiles filled space around the human ships. The USS Montana took a direct hit and began venting atmosphere. Montana is in trouble, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. Jake made a decision that would have shocked any alien commander. All ships form up on the Montana. We are going to ram their formation. Sir? Lieutenant Carter looked confused. You heard me. Full speed ahead. Target their biggest ship. The human battle group accelerated directly toward the center of the Devourer fleet. Alien commanders had never seen anything like it. Ships were not supposed to be used as weapons. The USS Defiance struck a Devourer battleship at full speed. Both ships were badly damaged, but the impact scattered the enemy formation. Human fighters poured through the gaps, attacking with missiles and energy weapons. On the planet below, Taurillian civilians watched the battle in amazement. For 3,000 years, their people had been taught that fighting Devourers was impossible. Now they saw human ships ramming enemy vessels without hesitation. Captain, we are taking heavy damage, reported Chief Engineer Bob Williams. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Jake ignored the damage reports. Keep firing. Target their command ship. The battle raged for 2 hours. Human ships were smaller and weaker than Devourer warships, but they fought with a fury that confused the enemy. Every time a human ship was damaged, the crew found new ways to keep fighting. When the UES Denver lost all power, her crew loaded the shuttle bay with explosives and launched it at a Devourer cruiser. The explosion took out both ships. When the UES Phoenix lost her main weapons, Captain Rachel Stone ordered her ship to ram a Devourer destroyer. The collision destroyed both vessels but saved 3 human fighters that were being chased. Finally, the remaining Devourer ships began to retreat. They had never faced an enemy that was willing to die rather than surrender. All Devourer ships are withdrawing from the system, reported the sensor officer. Jake slumped in his command chair. Half his battle group was destroyed or severely damaged, but 6 million Taurillian civilians were safe. Signal Admiral Sullivan, Jake ordered. Tell her New Sardinia is secure, and tell her we captured 3 more Devourer command ships. As news of the victory spread, something changed across the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Devourers had been forced to retreat from a major battle. The impossible had happened, and it was only the beginning. Council Ambassador Veltar had never seen anything like Earth's military headquarters. The building was full of humans running in every direction, carrying reports and giving orders. Everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Ambassador, General Foster will see you now, said Colonel Jim Baker. Her human guide? Veltar followed him through corridors lined with pictures of human battles. Her species, the Cathani, had been part of the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years. They had survived by being careful and avoiding fights. These humans were different. General Ryan Foster was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands. He looked like someone who had fought many battles. Ambassador, welcome to Earth, Foster said. I understand you want to study our military methods. Veltar's translator device worked hard to convert her clicking sounds into human speech. The Council is curious about your tactics. You defeated the Devourers at New Sardinia. No one has done that before, Foster smiled. Would you like to see our war room? He led her to a large chamber filled with screens and computers. Human officers were tracking battles across the galaxy. Red dots showed Devourer attacks, blue dots showed human responses. This is impressive, Veltar said. But I do not understand your strategy. You attack enemies that are stronger than you. That is the point, Foster explained. We assume every enemy will be bigger, faster, and more advanced than us. So we prepare for impossible wars. He pointed to a wall covered with battle plans. See these? Contingency plans for fighting enemies we have never met. Plans for winning when we are outnumbered 10-1. Plans for fighting in space, on planets, even inside black holes. Veltar's skin changed to a worried purple color. Why do you prepare for such terrible scenarios? Because they happen, Foster said simply. The Devourers are not the first enemy humanity has faced. We learned long ago that hoping for easy fights gets you killed. On the screens around them, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human fleets were engaged in 17 different battles. They were winning most of them. "There is something else you should know," Foster continued. "We are not going to wait for the Devourers to attack us anymore. We are going to hunt them down." Veltar's translator made confused sounds. "Hunt them? But they live in the galactic core?" "No ship can travel that far." Foster grinned. "Human ships can. Dr. Hampton's research team has been working on the problem. We found a way." He activated a new screen that showed a map of the galaxy. A red zone marked the galactic core where the Devourers had their home systems. "We call it Operation Deep Strike," Foster said. "Using captured Devourer technology and our own innovations, we can reach their homeworld. We are going to end this war at its source." Veltar felt fear run through her body. The humans were talking about attacking the most dangerous place in the galaxy. "This is madness," she whispered. "Maybe," Foster agreed. "But it is our kind of madness." 3 systems away, the Devourers were learning about human madness firsthand. They had attacked the colony world of New Austin expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found 30,000 human colonists who refused to surrender. Governor Paul Stevens stood in the colony's command center and watched enemy ships land outside the town. He had been offered evacuation by the Galactic Council. He had refused. "Sir, we have reports of Devourer ground forces approaching from the north," said his aide, Captain Nancy Lopez. Paul looked at the defensive positions around the town. Mining equipment had been turned into weapons. Farm tractors pulled artillery pieces. Even the school children were helping by running messages between defensive positions. "Tell all units to hold their positions," Paul ordered. "We are not running." The first Devourer attack came at dawn. Massive alien warriors charged the human defensive lines. They expected the colonists to break and run. Instead, they met concentrated fire from improvised weapons. 12-year-old Kevin Brown operated a mining laser that had been converted into a defense turret. His father had shown him how to use it before going to fight on the front lines. "I see them," Kevin shouted into his radio. "Big ugly ones coming from the east." The laser beam cut through 3 Devourer soldiers before they could reach the town's outer barrier. Kevin's mother, Dr. Susan Brown, was treating wounded defenders in the town hospital. His older sister Amy was helping to reload weapons for the militia. The entire Brown family was fighting. Just like every other family in New Austin, the battle continued for 3 days. The Devourers had expected to conquer the colony in a few hours. Instead, they found themselves trapped in brutal street fighting against humans who knew every building and alley. Captain Jennifer Walsh commanded the colony's small defense fleet from orbit. She had only 4 ships against a dozen Devourer warships, but she used the same tactics that had worked at New Sardinia. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Jennifer ordered. "Ram their formation and scatter." Her ship, the UES Frontier, accelerated directly toward the largest Devourer vessel. At the last second, she changed course and fired all weapons into the enemy ship's engines. The Devourer vessel exploded in a bright flash. "1 down, 11 to go," Jennifer announced calmly. News of the battle at New Austin spread across the galaxy through quantum communication networks. Alien species that had hidden from the Devourers for thousands of years began to watch. In amazement, the insectoid Hresh were the first to respond. Their industrial ships arrived at New Austin carrying weapons and supplies for the human defenders. "Why do you help us?" Governor Stevens asked the Hresh commander through a translator. "Because you fight," the alien replied. "For 3,000 years we have been afraid. You show us it is possible to be brave." The energy-based Luminari sent defensive shield generators. The aquatic depth dwellers provided medical supplies. Species that had never worked together before began coordinating their efforts to support the human colony. Dr. Lisa Hampton watched these developments from her research station. Her latest discovery had changed everything. The Devourers were not just physically afraid of human tactics. They were psychologically afraid of human emotions. "Zarkith, look at these brain scans," Lisa said to her alien colleague. The data showed devour neural activity during battles with humans. Every time humans showed courage, sacrifice, or determination, the Devourer hive mind became confused and disorganized. They cannot understand individual sacrifice, Lisa realized. Their hive mind thinks only about survival of the group. When humans choose to die for others, it creates a kind of mental static in their communications. Zarkith's skin flashed bright orange with excitement. This means prolonged fights with humans make them weaker, not stronger. Exactly, Lisa said. Every time we refuse to surrender, we are literally damaging their ability to think clearly. She began working on a new weapon that would amplify human emotional responses and broadcast them directly into devourer communication networks. If her theory was correct, it would drive them insane. Back on New Austin, the siege entered its 7th day. The colonists were tired and running low on ammunition, but they had not given up. Governor Stevens stood on the town hall steps and addressed his people. I know you are tired, he said. I know some of you are hurt. But I want you to remember something. 3,000 years ago, the Devourers made the galaxy afraid. Today we are making them afraid of us. The colonists cheered. They had lost friends and family in the fighting, but they had also proven something important. Humans would not bow to ancient evil. In the depths of space, Devourer command ships received reports of the failed attacks. For the first time in their long history, they were facing an enemy that grew stronger under pressure. Instead of weaker, the human species was becoming a problem that required a new solution. The siege of New Austin had lasted 2 weeks when Captain Jennifer Walsh received the worst news possible. Long-range sensors detected a massive Devourer battle fleet approaching the system. Over 200 ships were coming to finish what the ground forces had started. How long do we have? Asked Governor Paul Stevens over the communication link. Jennifer checked her calculations twice. 18 hours, maybe 20. Paul looked around the colony's command center. His staff was exhausted. Everyone had dark circles under their eyes from lack of sleep, but no one was talking about surrender. What about evacuation? Asked Captain Nancy Lopez. The council offered to take our children, Paul replied. I told them our children stay with us, Jennifer understood. Human families did not abandon each other. That was what made them different from the rest of the galaxy. Governor, I have an idea, Jennifer said. It is dangerous, but it might work. Tell me, we turn the entire colony into a weapon. Paul raised an eyebrow. Explain. Jennifer activated the tactical display. The Devourers will try to land troops in open areas around the town. But what if there are no safe landing zones? You want to mine the whole area? Better than that. We rig every building, every road, every piece of equipment to explode when the enemy gets close. Turn the colony into one big trap. Paul thought about it. That means destroying everything we built here. Better than letting the Devourers have it, Jennifer said, while the adults planned the defense. 12-year-old Kevin Brown was having his own conversation with his sister Amy. They were in the family garage, loading ammunition for the defense turrets. Amy, do you think we are going to die? Kevin asked. His sister was 16 and tried to act brave. But Kevin could see she was scared too. Maybe, Amy said honestly. But Dad says dying for something important is better than living for nothing, Kevin nodded. He had seen his father fight the Devour ground troops. He had seen his mother treat wounded defenders without stopping to rest. His whole family was willing to die to protect their home. I am not scared, Kevin said. He was lying, but it made him feel better. Amy smiled and hugged her little brother. I know you are not. You're the bravest kid I know. Across the galaxy, other species were watching the humans of New Austin with amazement. The insectoid Resh had never seen individuals willingly sacrifice themselves for a group. The aquatic depth dwellers could not understand fighting for land that was not even underwater, but they kept sending supplies. Anyway, Dr. Lisa Hampton was working around the clock to complete her new weapon. She called it the emotion amplifier. It would take human feelings and broadcast them directly into devourer communication networks. The theory is sound, she told Zarkith. Human emotional responses create interference in their hive mind. If we can amplify those responses, we might be able to shut down their coordination entirely. Zarkith's skin was flashing rapid colors as he worked. The power requirements are enormous. We need a direct connection to human brain patterns during combat. Lisa looked at the volunteers they had recruited. 20 human soldiers had agreed to have neural interfaces implanted in their brains. They would feel every emotion more intensely, but their feelings would become weapons against the enemy. Are you sure about this? Lisa asked Sergeant Tony Martinez, the lead volunteer. Tony was a veteran of 3 battles against the Devourers. He had lost friends in every fight. Doc, if my anger can kill these monsters, plug me in. He said. The neural interfaces were installed just as the Devourer fleet arrived at New Austin. Jennifer Walsh watched from orbit as hundreds of enemy ships surrounded the planet. All human ships, this is Captain Walsh, she announced on the general frequency. We are outnumbered 50-1. Any ship that wants to retreat has my permission. No one left. The battle began when Devourer landing craft descended toward the colony. But instead of finding open areas to land, they found explosive mines buried everywhere. The first wave of enemy ships was destroyed before they could reach the ground. In the colony, Governor Stevens activated the defense network. Every building had been wired with explosives. Every street had hidden weapon positions. The humans had turned their home into a fortress. All positions, this is Stevens, he announced. Show them what happens when they mess with humanity. Kevin Brown was at his laser turret when the first Devourer soldiers reached the town. The aliens were bigger and stronger than humans, but they moved slowly because they expected traps everywhere. They were right to be careful. Kevin waited until a group of Devourers was directly in front of his position. Then he fired the mining laser. The beam cut through their armor like it was paper. Got them! Kevin shouted. His father's voice came over the radio. Good shooting, son. Keep it up. All around the colony, similar scenes were playing out. Human civilians were fighting with whatever weapons they could find. Old hunting rifles, kitchen knives, even rocks and bottles. The Devourers had expected an easy victory against a small colony. Instead, they found 30,000 humans who refused to quit. In space, Captain Walsh led her small fleet against the massive Devourer armada. Her ships were tiny compared to the enemy vessels, but they moved fast and struck hard. Target their command ship, Walsh ordered. All weapons full power. The Use Frontier fired every weapon it had at the largest Devourer vessel. The enemy ship's shields absorbed most of the damage, but some energy got through. Hull breach on. The enemy command ship, reported Lieutenant Dave Miller. Minor damage, Walsh smiled grimly. Minor damage is better than no damage. Keep firing. But the real surprise came when Dr. Hampton activated her emotion amplifier. The device connected to the neural interfaces of the 20 volunteer soldiers and began broadcasting their feelings across the battlefield. The effect on the Devourer forces was immediate and dramatic. Their coordinated attacks became confused and disorganized. Ships collided with each other as their hive mind communications broke down. What is happening to them? Walsh asked over the communication link. They cannot handle human emotions, Hampton replied. Our capacity for individual sacrifice is disrupting their group consciousness. Sergeant Martinez was connected to the amplifier and feeling every emotion intensely. His anger at seeing friends die, his determination to protect innocent people, his willingness to sacrifice his own life for others. All of these feelings were being transmitted directly into the Devourer communication network. To the aliens, it was like listening to insane screaming. The tide of battle began to turn. Devourer ground forces retreated from the colony as their officers lost the ability to coordinate attacks. In space, enemy ships began withdrawing to safer positions, but the humans were not finished. Governor Stevens ordered all explosive charges in the colony to be detonated simultaneously. Buildings, roads, and equipment exploded in a massive chain reaction that could be seen from orbit. The explosion took out the remaining Devourer ground forces and sent a message to the enemy fleet. Humans would rather destroy everything they owned than let it fall into alien hands. Captain Walsh received a priority message from Admiral Sullivan. Jennifer, we are sending reinforcements. Can you hold for 6 more hours? Walsh looked at her tactical display. Her fleet was down to 2 ships. The colony was burning, but the Devourers were retreating. We can hold, Admiral, Walsh replied. We can hold forever if we have to. As news of the defense of New Austin spread across the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. Other species began to openly support humanity's war against the Devours. The proud Cathani sent warships. The mysterious Veil Walkers shared their stealth technology. Even the ancient timekeepers offered their support. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had lived in fear of the Devourers. Now they were learning to live with hope. And humanity had only just begun to fight. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the largest military gathering in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species had come to Earth to plan Operation Final Stand. The mission was simple in concept, but impossible in execution. Attack the Devourer homeworld in the galactic core. The journey will take 6 months, Sullivan announced to the assembled commanders. The region around the galactic core has radiation levels that will kill most organic life. The gravitational forces will tear apart normal ships. Captain Jake Morrison listened from his seat in the front row. The used Defiance had been rebuilt again with new armor and weapons. But even with all their improvements, reaching the galactic core seemed impossible. How do we survive the trip? Asked Commander Zethver of the Cathani fleet. Dr. Lisa Hampton stepped forward. She looked different now. The months of fighting had changed her from a quiet scientist into someone harder and more determined. We used Devourer technology against them, Lisa explained. The captured ships have shielding systems designed to survive in the galactic core. We have adapted this technology for our own vessels. She activated a holographic display showing the planned route. We will travel in a convoy formation. Human ships will lead each group because our crews can adapt to unexpected problems better than anyone else. Jake smiled at that. It was true. Humans had become famous throughout the galaxy for doing impossible things in desperate situations. What about the enemy forces? Asked General Ryan Foster. Admiral Sullivan answered. Intelligence reports suggest the Devourers have pulled most of their ships back to defend their homeworld. We will face the largest concentration of enemy forces in their history. How many ships are we talking about? Foster pressed. Over 10,000, Sullivan replied calmly. The room went quiet. Even with the combined fleets of 47 species, they would only have about 3,000 ships. Captain Jennifer Walsh raised her hand. She had been promoted after the defense of New Austin and given command of the rebuilt colony's defense fleet. Admiral, what makes you think we can win against those odds? Sullivan looked around the room at the alien commanders. Many of them seemed frightened, but the human officers looked excited. Because we are not just fighting a battle, Sullivan said. We are fighting for the idea that the galaxy belongs to the living, not to ancient monsters. She paused and looked directly at the alien commanders. Your species have spent 3,000 years learning how to hide and run. It is time to learn how to fight. 3 days later, the massive convoy began its journey toward the galactic core. Jake Morrison commanded the lead battle group with 12 human ships and 24 alien vessels. The first month of travel was routine. They moved through empty space at maximum speed, refueling from supply ships when needed. But as they got closer to the galactic core, strange things began to happen. Captain, sensors are detecting gravitational anomalies ahead, reported Lieutenant Ben Carter. Jake studied the readings. Space itself was twisted and distorted by the massive black hole at the galaxy's center. Normal navigation was becoming impossible. Switch to manual control, Jake ordered. We are going to have to fly by instinct from here on. Behind them, several alien ships began having problems with their navigation systems. The Kethani vessels were falling behind as their crews struggled with the distorted sensor readings, but the human ships pressed forward. Their crews had trained for exactly this kind of situation. When technology failed, humans relied on skill and intuition. Dr. Hampton was aboard the UES Defiance working on her latest discovery. During the journey, she had been studying the ancient automated defense systems they had detected around the galactic core. "Jake, you need to see this," she called from her lab. Jake found her examining holographic displays of massive structures orbiting the galactic core. They looked like space stations, but they were clearly alien in design. "What are they?" Jake asked. "Defense platforms built by species that tried to fight the Devourers thousands of years ago," Lisa explained. "They were designed to contain the threat, but they failed." "Can we use them?" Lisa smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "I think so. The control systems are designed to respond to intelligent life, but they have been dormant for centuries because no one was brave enough to get close enough to activate them." "Until now," Jake said. "Until now," Lisa agreed. As the convoy approached the outer edge of the galactic core, they encountered the first Devourer patrol fleets. The ancient enemy had been waiting for them. "Enemy contacts bearing 047, reported the sensor officer. 60 ships confirmed." Jake felt his pulse quicken. After months of travel, they were finally going to fight. "All ships, this is Morrison," he announced on the fleet frequency. "Attack formation Beta. Show them what we learned at New Austin." The human ships accelerated toward the enemy formation while the alien vessels provided support fire. The Devourers expected another defensive battle. Instead, they got a direct assault. The used Defiance fired her quantum torpedoes at point-blank range into a Devourer battleship. The enemy vessel exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the twisted space around them. "Direct hit," shouted Lieutenant Carter, but more Devourer ships were coming. Jake could see hundreds of enemy vessels moving to intercept the convoy. "All ships, continue the attack," Jake ordered. "We push through no matter what." The battle raged for hours as the convoy fought its way deeper into the galactic core. Human ships used ramming attacks and suicide runs to break through enemy formations. Alien vessels provided covering fire and rescued survivors from damaged ships. Captain Walsh led a group of destroyers in a desperate charge against a Devourer command cluster. Her ship took heavy damage but managed to destroy 3 enemy vessels before retreating. "This is Walsh," she reported over the radio. "Path is clear for the next wave." As they got closer to the Devourer homeworld, Dr. Hampton began activating the ancient defense platforms. The massive structures came to life for the first time in thousands of years. "Jake, the platforms are responding," Lisa announced excitedly. "They are designed to target Devourer ship signatures automatically." Ancient weapons that had been silent for millennia began firing at the enemy fleet. Beams of energy unlike anything in modern technology cut through Devourer vessels like they were made of paper. The aliens who had built these weapons were long dead, but their final gift to the galaxy was still working. "Admiral Sullivan, this is Morrison," Jake reported. "The ancient defenses are active. We have a clear path to the homeworld." "Understood, Captain." "Begin the final assault." The Devourer homeworld was a twisted nightmare of organic technology and dark metal. Massive structures covered the planet's surface like tumors. Ships the size of cities orbited overhead, but Jake could see something else. The planet was dying. After thousands of years of consuming other worlds, the Devourers had finally begun to consume themselves. "All ships, target the central structure," Sullivan ordered. "That is where their hive mind is located." Jake looked at the massive tower rising from the planet's surface. It pulsed with sickly light and seemed to be alive. "This is it," he said to his crew. "Everything we have fought for comes down to this moment." The used Defiance dove toward the planet's surface with every weapon firing. Around them, human and alien ships followed, creating a storm of energy that lit up the dark world below, but the Devourers fought back with desperate fury. They threw everything they had at the attacking fleet. Thousands of ships rose from the planet to meet them. Jake's ship took hit after hit. Systems failed all around him. But he kept flying toward the central tower. "Captain, we are losing life." "Support?" reported Chief Engineer Bob Williams. "Keep flying," Jake replied. "We are almost there." Dr. Hampton activated her emotion amplifier one final time. Every human in the fleet felt their feelings intensified and broadcast across the battlefield. Love for their families, anger at injustice, hope for the future that devour a hive mind, faced with the combined emotional assault of 3,000 human minds, began to break apart. Jake saw his chance. With his ship falling apart around him, he aimed directly at the central tower and fired every weapon he had left. "This is humanity," he announced over the open communication channel. "We do not run from monsters, we kill them." The used Defiance struck the tower at full speed. The explosion that followed lit up the entire system. The central hive mind that had controlled the Devourers for thousands of years was destroyed in an instant. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships suddenly stopped moving. Without their central intelligence, they became nothing more than empty metal shells floating in space. Jake Morrison did not survive the final attack, but his sacrifice saved billions of lives and freed the galaxy from 3,000 years of terror. 6 months later, children from dozens of different species played together on the rebuilt world of New Austin. Human children taught alien kids how to play baseball. Alien children showed humans their traditional games. Admiral Sullivan stood watching them play and remembered Jake's final words. Humanity had not run from the monsters. They had done something better. They had taught the galaxy that monsters could be killed. The fear was over. The galaxy was free. And it would never forget the species that had been crazy enough to fight. Back when everyone else had given up hope. In the end, humanity had not just defeated the Devourers. They had shown the galaxy how to be brave.